There are shows with psychics.
And there are shows with doctors.
But there's no show like The Psychic and the Doc.
Your practical paranormal power unleashed.
This show synthesizes the talents of world-class medium Mark Anthony, the psychic lawyer, psychic explorer,
and street smart spiritualist, behavioral psychologist, Dr. Pat Baccili. All subjects are on the table and no topic is taboo. Inspiration, insight,
action, and fun as Mark Anthony connects callers with loved ones in spirit.
In tandem with Dr. Pat's fresh, no-nonsense, street-smart, intuitive insights. And she is hilarious.
Extraordinary problems
require extraordinary solutions, which may come from this side
or the other side. This is The Psychic
and the Doc. And it starts now. Welcome, everyone, to the Spring Equinox Show. Have you sprung into spring here on the Psychic and the Doc on the Transformation Network? I'm Mark Anthony, JD, Psychic Explorer, and I'm here with my esteemed co-host, the one and only Dr. Pat Baccili, world-renowned behavioral psychologist, founder of the Transformation Network, host of the Dr. Pat Show, and my dear friend and co-host. This is a call-in show, 1-800-930-2819. And this is a very special day. It is the spring equinox. And what the equinox means is that day and night are at an equal balance, ergo equinox. And so every minute, every day, it gets lighter, longer by 1 minute in the Northern Hemisphere. And for our friends in the Southern Hemisphere, just the opposite, because they're going into autumn now. But this is a great show. We just had a lunar eclipse. Rocky and I, our producer Rocky and I, were just at the Sedona Ascension Retreats. And we didn't get to see the lunar eclipse because it was snowing, which was really unusual in Sedona. But we got to experience a mystical, magical wonderland, seeing all the beautiful red rocks of Sedona look like they're covered by powdered sugar. It was awesome. So Dr. Pat, what are your thoughts on the equinox? I know you know a lot about balance.
Well, this is a different equinox because a lot of things have shifted. And so when we're talking about, think about where we are today. This is the 20th. And by the time the 29th and 30th come along, we'll not only have a lunar eclipse, we had the lunar eclipse, we'll have a solar eclipse. You know, we're having what you call a vernal equinox right now. And so what you have is a lot of energy shifting. I mean, we went through this, and I think, Mark, you and I talked about this when we talked about Pluto. At the time, I was jumping up and down, and I got an email from a couple of people, and they were like, oh, okay, well, Pluto just moved out of Capricorn, but we didn't understand what you were saying. So I have to explain it. Pluto has been in both Sagittarius and Capricorn for, I think, 38 years.
Right.
Those are my two primary signs. I have 8 planets up there in those two, right?
Right.
So when you get like an energy like Pluto, thank goodness you moved out of here and you moved into Aquarius, then you're getting a different energy. But this is a special equinox, this spring equinox. You know, this is time, of course. What does this mean? This is when the sun crosses, are you ready? The celestial equator.
Ooh, oh, wow.
And day and night become almost equal. And so that should be a message symbolic. You know, when you have day and night become equal, what are you talking about? So here's the spiritual version of it, the light and the dark. How are you managing your motivation, your mojo between the light and the dark? And I'm going to say this out loud for everybody. I don't believe in balance. So balance is not a word rarely will you hear me say balance. First of all, I got a whole mouthful of it that I pretty much threw up every day in my corporate job about work-life balance. Then I had to try to convince thousands of women and men that they should have work-life balance when it's not a reality. So harmony is the place that I come from. If you say to a painter who paints, 20 hours a day. You need work-life balance. They're going to look at you like, hello, you should have told Michelangelo that or somebody else. But this is the time, especially this year, rejuvenation and new beginnings. And if you're not fired up about that, and the energy of this, Mark, didn't start now. It started when you were in Sedona. You know what
Yes.
I'm saying? I
Yes.
mean, so you were part of that already. What
Yes.
was it you felt there? Let's talk about that. What were you feeling at that event? But tell me what you picked up from the gang, the crowd, the people.
Well, Sedona is a very unique place. It's the home or the site of 7 energy vortexes, major vortexes. And people, it was funny. The first day Rocky and I got there, we stopped and we're taking some photos, and this couple, I made a mention about a vortex. And they go, "Well, what's that?" And a vortex is a whirlpool of electromagnetic energy. We deal with whirlpools all the time. I mean, when you drain a sink and it forms the whirlpool, a tornado is a whirlpool, and electromagnetic energy also engages in a swirling pattern. Sedona is unique because people go there for the red rocks, the giant, beautiful orange and red mountains. Why are they orange and red? Well, magnets are iron. And when iron rusts, it turns orange and red. So, there's vortexes all over the planet, but there's places where it's really torqued up to the max, and that's Sedona. So we were feeling that positive energy to begin with, but then with the lunar eclipse and being at the Sedona Ascension Retreat, and I was very honored to be one of the speakers. We had the host of the Sedona Ascension Retreat, Suzanne Ross, on the show about a month and a half ago, and it was just amazing. We had some of the top luminaries and spiritual teachers in the world that were there, and I was honored to be among them. And just being around all those people was very enlightening. It was light, it was bright, and it was the perfect way to welcome in the vernal equinox, light and bright. When we were there, like I said, it became a winter wonderland. It started snowing, which is very unusual in Arizona anyway. It happens in Sedona, but it seldom happens the way it did. And we woke up the day of the conference, and there was snow everywhere. It was pristine. It was beautiful. And then by noon to 1 o'clock, it all melted, disappeared. And so we got that glimpse of magic. And everybody that we encountered, Dr. Pat, that all they could talk about was how magical things were. So you had the lunar eclipse, you had the vortexes, you had the winter wonderland, you had everybody in this state of mind. And what I felt, Dr. Pat, was if everybody on the planet could experience what Rocky and I did that morning, wow, I think the whole world would stop and say, the world really can be a better place.
Yeah. I love the energy of what you talked about, because that's what this show is about. For those of you out there, we're taking your calls right now, 1-800-930-2819. You're going to get a little bit of this and a little bit of that today. You're going to get a lot about the equinox. You're going to get a lot about the planet's alignment from me. And Mark is, of course, going to connect you with your loved ones. But I want to send this message out to all of you, because what you talked about is the pre-energy. Now, people want to talk about retrograde. We can. Mercury, I think, Venus in retrograde, we can talk about that, but that's not the energy of the time. The energy of the time is this is a time of spirit today for you listening. This is spiritual development, intention setting, wish manifestation, energy change. This is it. This is about moving between dimensions. It's about enabling and manifesting. So for Linda and I, we have had to work remotely because I have been on calls 24/7. I feel like my phone, I think my battery's dead now, but we've had to take care of some unusual business for us to get ready for our expansion, that in between clients. But one of the things you find is that this energy is not isolated to just an individual. So how does it show up? Let me give you an example. So any of you out there feel like you need to rearrange your room. think about this. So a couple of days ago, we started to do some rearranging here. Since I knew I was going to be in my home office, we just started to move things around. Everything changed with that move. Then we redid this room I'm in. This is my in-home office. And I was not facing this direction. I was facing south. My back was north. I am not a south-north person. I am an east-west person. And so I tried to explain to my triple Virgo friend, Linda, why, after all the work we did to rearrange the room, why I needed to move my desk. And I couldn't figure it out until I was talking with one of our hosts. I think it was Bryn Blankenship. And we were chatting. And I said, oh my gosh, that's it. I always have to face the east when I'm doing the creative work, but the west has got my back. What do you think of that crazy thing there, Mark?
I don't think it's crazy at all. My parents, both of whom had psychic abilities, every time we set up a bedroom, they insisted that the head of the bed, be facing east. And they said that it had to do with the gravitational, the rotation of the earth. And they said that you slept better. And I was like, okay, whatever. And but when you look back, like in ancient Egypt, the tombs were always facing the east because of the rising sun was excuse me, the tombs are always facing west because the setting sun was synonymous with entering the afterlife. And then for a couple hundred years, Egypt was Christian before it was conquered by Muslims. And then there was a shift to where all the tombs had to be facing east because the rising sun symbolized the resurrection. So there's nothing new about any of this. This has been around for a very long time. And, when people say, I'm glad you brought up about Pluto going from Pisces to Sagittarius for 38 years. People say, huh? You have to realize that a year for Pluto and a year on Earth is the time it takes Earth to orbit the sun. For Pluto to orbit our sun takes 248 years. So once again, time is relative. I'm going to throw something else in too.
Yeah.
When people say that, oh, astrology, right, these planets can't affect us. Well, the moon affects our tides. And you talk to police officers and they'll tell you a full moon, like the word lunatic is based on moon. And when I was a prosecutor, I used to see it too. The arrests would surge during a full moon. Also, well, okay, that's one thing. I mean, the sun's gravity affects us, the moon's gravity affects us, but what about constellations? Well, Albert Einstein theorized in 1916 that there were gravitational waves, which were caused by two black holes colliding, and then waves of gravity would travel through space, and that when they got to Earth, they would affect us, they would affect electrical fields, they would affect everything. In 2016, 100 years after his theory, the LIGO, Laser Interferometer Gravitational Observatory, detected gravitational waves and tracked them to a collision of black holes that occurred 1.3 billion years ago.
Wow.
And they did affect our radio waves, meaning they also affected our bodies. So think about it. Something that happened 1.3 billion years ago, which travels at the speed of light, meaning it took these waves 1.3 billion years to get here, affected life on Earth.
Yeah. And I think that we become a little bit absorbed when we forget that the documentation of things on Earth came from the beings that were on Earth at the time, trying to understand the phenomenon without a Zoom call. You understand? They didn't Zoom each other and say, hey, what do you got there on your TV? They looked at the stars. They had to watch the stars. They noticed when things move, plant this here, don't do this here. You see, and every time I get an article about debunking things like that, I always think about, well, if they really had it that wrong, how the heck did humans survive? No, they didn't have it wrong. They didn't. Can you imagine if one of us somewhere decided that that poison Amazonian thing that grows only in the Amazon was good to eat? We'd all be gone. But they didn't. They were
Right.
smart. They were tactical. They were strategic. And then, of course, if you talk to the ancient astronaut theorists, which I love to talk to them,
Which a bunch of them were at the Sedona Ascension Retreat.
They probably were. But I love watching that channel because what do? They don't always tell you what's going on. They ask the questions. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, the questions are all yours. Let's take a short break. I'm Dr. Pat. I'm here with my esteemed colleague, the one and only Mark Anthony, JD, Psychic Explorer. When we come back, it's all about you. We'll be right back. And whenever you do a show on the equinox, you could tell you're going to get a little bit of that, a little bit of this. But this is the time to harmonize both the night, the day, the light, the dark, and it all starts within yourselves. Now, I think we have some callers. Nat, who do we have first? Let's go.
All right. Our first caller today is going to be Karen from New York. Karen, thank you so much for calling into the Psychic in the Dark. You are on the show now.
Hey, Karen, welcome to the show.
Oh, hi. Thank you so much for taking my call. Joining the show.
Yeah, how can we help you?
The equinox, everybody.
Yeah, that's right.
I have a lot going on, so anyone in spirit or any of my guides.
All right, Karen.
All right.
All right, Karen. Let me see if any of your folks want to come through and talk to me. I'm immediately getting drawn to the female, meaning mother side of your family. And there's a woman coming through. Now, she could be on the mother level, which would be on the generational level above you, or the one above that, a grandmother. And the reason that I say this woman was both a mother and a grandmother. In other words, all grandmothers are mothers and many mothers are grandmothers. This woman was elderly when she passed. She had beautiful silvery white hair prior to passing.
Yes.
And what I'm getting with her is this draining sensation. Even though she lived to an advanced age, I can see her around 89 to 92. That's kind of how what she looks like to me and how she's projecting herself. And the draining sensation, there was no big surprise that she was going to die. She knew this, and she was actually a real trooper about it. It wasn't like, oh my God, I'm dying. She was like, I've lived a good life. It's time for me to go. And I'm getting lungs filling up with fluid. This very well could be congestive heart failure. It could be some other lung issue, but I'm getting congestive heart failure. And I feel that even though she had a long and a good life, she did have some pretty heavy bumps along the road with health issues. I'm getting burning sensations in her stomach and also in her chest. So she may have had some issues possibly with lumps in her breasts or breast cancer. And I'm getting a burning sensation in my stomach. So there could be a history of stomach problems, possibly an ulcer. But the thing is, she navigated through all of that. And I get a declining, and she keeps showing me a scorpion. Cool. Now, unless you have a story about a scorpion, this generally indicates the Scorpio timeframe. Now, what this could mean, Karen, it doesn't necessarily mean she was a Scorpio. It could mean a significant birth, death, anniversary, or event which may be connected to you or the spirit or somebody close to you, either on planet Earth or in spirit, within the Scorpio timeframe. So let me hold position here. Does any of this resonate with you?
Describing, you sounded like my grandmother, except I don't know that she had ulcers or, any stomach issues through her life or breast cancer. She had heart disease and, a lot of ramifications with that. But okay, you're right, she was a trooper.
Hold on, and thank you for that.
No, Yeah.
Hold on, Karen. Hold there. Normally when I do private readings, I spend about 10, 15 minutes ahead of time. Different medical conditions and different problems or causes of death have a similar physical sensation to me. If I'm getting bumps and problems in my chest, which felt like her breast, that could also be an indicator of a heart issue, which, clearly is in your chest. The digestion, you may not have been aware. But I know that a lot of people people that I know who have had heart attacks tell me that the precursor to it, they felt indigestion. They said, oh, they felt nausea and indigestion. And, they're like, well, take a Tums or something. And then it's like, oh, no, this problem is way beyond Tums. So I think we got her here. Now, the Scorpio time frame. Does Scorpio connect with you in any way? Or go ahead, Karen.
I was going to say, I don't know, I don't relate to that one.
November.
Is there anything? Yeah, November. It's October 20 to November 20. Births, deaths, anniversaries, or events connected you or her or someone close to either of you within Scorpio. Could be something that happened with you last Scorpio timeframe, or there could be something coming up with it this year.
Mm-hmm.
If it doesn't make sense, just let's make a note of it, because what happens is it's after the reading when things really start to resonate with people, and it can take time. She's also now pulling me into the Capricorn time frame. Boy, this lady likes astrological time frames. Capricorn is cool because it's roughly December 20th through January 20th. When I give the astrological time frames, it could be a couple days, 2 or 3 days either side. So there could be births, deaths, anniversaries, or events connected to her or you or someone close to you within Capricorn. Capricorn is interesting because it encompasses both Christmas and New Year's. And for our Jewish friends, it could also incorporate Hanukkah. But this is more than just ho, 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 we like Christmas or Happy New Year's or Mazel Tov. It could be a significant Christmas, New Year's, or Hanukkah that may leap out at you in some way.
Well, I had a lovely Christmas Eve celebration this year. My partner's daughter, we never did get married. If we did, she'd be my stepdaughter. Anyway, she brought her, of course, her 1-year-old, and it was including me as part of the extended family, along with the grandmothers.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
So Karen,
it was a lovely celebration, and that's meaningful. And the daughter is also a Capricorn, or is she on the cusp of Capricorn and Aquarius? So I think she's a full-fledged Capricorn. Yeah.
And you're the grandmother now, aren't you?
Yeah, in a sense, not legally, but
no.
yeah.
Hold on, Karen. Don't hyperanalyze the message into oblivion. Marriage contracts and paperwork be damned. You're now the grandmother figure, and your grandmother is coming through, and she's handing you the baton, the scepter, because now you're the grandmother. Let's get a message for her, and then I'll let. We've got to get Dr. Pat's insights. Okay, water. She keeps talking about water. Now, of course, we all need to drink water because it's essential for life. But there's some issue with you and water. Now, maybe she's talking about there's an irrigation problem or a leaky sink, but she's zeroing in on your body. So are there any issues with you not hydrating enough, or any issues? And you don't have to reveal, your medical history here on, online on air. But there's some issue with you and water. Anything there makes sense?
Well, yes, I think somehow I'm dehydrated. I keep getting messages about that. I feel like I drink a lot, and I've been thirsty a lot, and I just go and keep sipping on water. So I don't know, is it just running out of me and not giving me any benefits, or what's on?
Well, first off, I'm going to recommend that you schedule an appointment with your doctor to discuss this, because there's a lot of medical conditions. And even though Dr. Pat and I both have doctorate degrees, we are not medical doctors. And dehydration is more than just a passing sensation. It's an indicator of a lot of medical conditions. It could be an indication of diabetes. It could be an indication that your electrolytes, the minerals in your bodies, need to be replenished. So this is, and here's the thing, you've been getting a lot of messages, and you're obviously a very intuitive person. I'm getting this from your grandmother who's water, water, water. This is what I call spirit intervention. Your grandmother's spirit's intervening to let you know that water is an issue, dehydration is an issue. You already are intuitively detecting this, and now you're getting reinforcement from the other side. So this means you can take care of this. Dr. Pat, what's your take?
Yeah, let me just mention two things. And again, thank you, Mark, for that. Water is your lifeline. We cannot exist without it, although we think we can. Now, I would check with the doctor. There are two things that come to mind. One is edema. Are you familiar with the term edema?
Oh, yes, I don't have that.
Right.
And I don't have diabetes.
No. But what I want to say, I want to get back to something you said. Did I hear you right when you said, yes, I go get a couple sips of water? Did you say that or no?
I feel like I'm doing constantly.
Okay.
Or, there are times when I'll feel very thirsty and I'll just keep drinking.
Yeah.
I'll have a half a cup, and a little while later, I'll feel thirsty again. I'll go have some more.
Okay.
So that's how I meant it.
Okay, good. I love that.
So I don't know, all in all, if I'm not drinking enough or my body is just excreting.
Yeah.
I've been sweating a lot and I pee a lot.
Okay,
So,
let me comment. Let me comment. I'm not a doctor, a medical doctor, but I will tell you that I have experience with this. And two things, go see your doctor. What does it mean when you're peeing a lot? Oh, I'm not going to say what I was just going to say, but there could be something going on with you.
It's an indicator. Yeah, it's an indicator.
So you have to go see your doctor. The other thing I want to be clear about is when we were walking the earth, right? I think we forgot how to walk the earth. Come on, that's a whole different show, Karen. But when you're thirsty, it's not going and drink a cup. And so when I work with people that are in training, so I do training, right, with people in my sport, right? So for us, we can't just get a sip. We have to constantly be putting the water in, right? You see what I'm saying? Now, the fact that you're sweating a lot is come on, you're processing water. So do you know why you're sweating enough? This is, again, tell the doctor. Do you know why you're sweating enough? Are you lifting weights? What are you doing? It's
not all the time.
Yeah, but what makes
it's not all the time.
Okay. Is it at night?
I don't. Sometimes I'll wake up and I've been sweating.
Yeah.
And I think, I developed a rash, doctor. Which I think is that, but whatever. I don't know what that means.
Okay, yeah. So this is just now. Mark and I both are telling you right now. You need to make
Karen. Listen,
you need to go make your look. We're not doctors, but I'm telling you, if you were my sister, let's say we're sisters. No, let's say we're sisters.
No big.
We're sisters. If you were my sister, or my best friend Linda, I would be in her face saying, "Oh, honey, you have got to make a doctor's appointment. You're sweating now. You have a rash."
No. I've been in touch with my doctor, and I have an appointment coming up. That's nothing. But
okay, but please listen to what I'm trying to say. Take it from somebody that has had a serious autoimmune disease. That's me. I want you to write these things down on a piece of paper, and when you walk into your doctor, I want you to hand your doctor the note. That's my big message.
What did you want me to write down?
All of the things you mentioned, every detail. So from now until you go to your doctor, you said it was coming up in a week or so, right there, Karen? I want you to start writing them down on a piece of paper. You wake up in the morning, you're in a cold sweat or you're sweating. You need to write it down. You need to write down to your doctor, I am constantly thirsty. Oh, by the way, I'm not drinking a gallon of water, but I'm peeing a lot. You need to write them down on a piece of paper, because unless you are like Mark, who remembers everything and is sharp all the time, if I don't write them down, now I go into my doctor and I write them down and I hand my doctor the note and I say, dude, since I saw you last, these are the things going on. Please write them down and let your doctor fully know, because we're not doctors here and we want to make sure you're in good health.
Have faith in my doctor. I'm more interested to know what my grandmother meant. If we could ask her if she feels I'm not drinking enough.
She's not going to answer that question for you.
That was the message, Karen.
The
Karen,
message
with all
water.
due respect, and first off, thank you for calling in. All you're doing is rationalizing and avoiding the messages that are being transmitted to you by your grandmother and what Dr. Pat and I are trying to tell you. Okay. Look, I don't fling out water coming from your grandmother's spirit because I hope to get a hit. This is an issue. Hopefully it's a minor issue. But the thing is, instead of negating that, you need to focus on that, because when people go into spirit contact, it's best to check your expectations at the door and listen to what they're saying, as opposed to going in with a set agenda. The spirit, the other side, is going to tell you what you need to know, which is not always what we think we want to know. And we're here to help you. And both of us are on the same page, because we know that the spirit, your grandmother and your collective of spirits, has identified a potential problem and they want you to be well. So do what Dr. Pat said, write down everything you're experiencing, even if it's not all the time. So, because when doctors see a number of symptoms, that will put him or her on the right track to schedule you for the proper tests. So this is what I refer to as spirit intervention. Your grandmother's spirit is trying to head off at the pass a bigger problem. So I'm going to leave that with you. Go ahead, Dr. Pat.
Yeah, that's all we're trying to say to you. You're getting a message that it's nothing to be alarmed about, but it's something to be due diligent about. It's obviously there's a message coming in that says you need to really pay attention. If I give my doctor a half of a story, I am going to get a half of a solution. And boy, I've done that before, and that is not pretty. That is not pretty for me. And so now I just...
She's stumped.
What? What'd you say?
I tell my doctor a lot, she is stumped. So...
What?
Get another doctor.
Anyway,
get another doctor.
Yeah, thank you. Your doctors, have your doctor have your doctor call into the show. We'll get her unstumped. Let's take a short break, everybody. We'll be right back.
Thank you.
Yeah, boy. Welcome back to The Psychic and the Doc. And I just want to tell you, Mark, I found the most delicious keto bread.
Did you?
I did, but we're going to go to the phones now because I got David waiting. But I found the most delicious keto bread. And I'm telling you, I am like a low-carb person. But this keto bread, it's at one of our favorite wholesale stores. Just saying, can't say their name, not allowed to say brands. But one of my favorite now wholesale stores. Thank you for doing what you're doing, big favorite wholesale store. But it's in there, and it is the best keto bread. Linda even eats it. Let's go to the phones, Nat.
All right. Our next caller, as you said, is going to be David from Virginia. David, thank you so much for calling into the show today. You are on the show now.
Hi, David. Welcome to the show. Great to have you.
Hey, David.
David, are you with me? Nat, why don't you work on that? I'm going to keep talking to Mark.
We'll check on that.
Okay, check on that. Okay, Virginia. Let me tell you my Virginia story real quick. You know, my mama, stepmama Doris, I call her. I call her Mama Doris, from the Deep South. First child at 12, second child at 13, my two stepsisters. One of them really wasn't all together. But Joyce was drop dead gorgeous. But I got this interesting background. And so when I say I'm from New York, people expect me to talk like Linda. But I have this interesting background because I grew up with a mom that used to be, honey, y'all need to get the dishes done. Okay. Like in the Bronx. We're in the Bronx. Well, y'all got to get the dish. So I grew up with that and I loved my stepmama. Now we didn't always agree. And then I became really crazy when I turned 16 and 17. So she kicked me out and I became homeless. That's another day. However, Virginia.
I don't mean to laugh at the way you said it, but that's another.
That's another story. But I got to know Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina. And I'm telling you, when a kid from the Bronx puts a fork in homemade peach cobbler.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And grandmama, my grandparents grew up on potbelly stove, no electricity. My dad had it all put in. Potbelly stove, no electricity, fire, outhouse. Outhouse. This is my grandma. Crippling arthritis, grandmama. But when we got back from that Sunday church, OMG, everybody came to their house. It was like a party. Pork chops fried with batter that had to be come on now, Mark. You've never tasted delicious fried pork chops in a special seasoning. Oh my God. It's no wonder why everybody dies from the heart attack from down there. But I mean, that's true. That's my stepmom actually did pass from a massive heart attack. But I grew up understanding about a different culture. I understood what the hard life of a farmer in Virginia is like. I don't think I'm allowed to say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. When we were young kids, we were put to work down at my uncle's factory that used to make cigarettes down there in Virginia, picking bad cigarettes off a conveyor belt. Now, if that don't turn you off from smoking, I don't know what will. On air, we talked during the break, Gal Gadot wants to create, produce, orchestrate a movie about Cleopatra.
Yeah.
That talks about this powerful, powerful woman. I can't wait. Rooney Mara is hopefully going to make the movie about Audrey Hepburn.
Wow.
Now, Rooney Mara is one of my favorite actresses. I wish she would come back and act. I just want to say to you all out there that produced the second version of Girl with the Dragon Tattoo and not cast her in that, big mistake. How big of a mistake? The same mistake of not casting Charlize Theron in Furiosa. Look at the box office receipts. You could tell I'm a movie buff, right? I grew up, Mark, and I was neurologically different as a child. Let me just say that. So what was it that would shut me up, calm me down, is give me money, take my bicycle, drive a long time up a gigantic hill, and spend the entire weekend in the movies. Comic books. I had every comic book imaginable. And so here I am as an adult, and I haven't grown out of it.
Why should you? Why should you? Movies they take us out of our everyday life into a new world. Movies, entertainment. I've always been a movie buff. I'm a lot of things. I'm interested in a lot of things, but I've always enjoyed movies. And now that I've done a lot of TV, I enjoy the art of making TV and editing. And seeing Gal Gadot, whom I just love Gal Gadot, and doing Cleopatra and a different Cleopatra, because the Elizabeth Taylor movie, I think everybody should watch it. The first half was more accurate. The second half, because what so many of these movies cut out, which really annoys me, when Cleopatra got with Mark Antony, they had 3 children together. Not only did Cleopatra have a son with Julius Caesar, I mean, think of that child's lineage. Cleopatra was her great-great-great-great-grandfather was one of Alexander the Great's generals and a family member. So her child had the blood of both Julius Caesar and Alexander the Great, not to mention Cleopatra. Talk about lineage. But then she had 3 children, a son, and then twins, a boy and a girl, with Mark Antony, and each one of them had an amazing history. Now, I don't want to get into doing a whole history lecture, but the thing is, so many of the movies always cut that out because, oh, that takes too long and all that. That's what bothers me about historical movies. Go ahead and make what happened, because it's more interesting than the nonsense that Hollywood writers come up with. If you go through the whole, because people glamorize Cleopatra. Yes, she was brilliant. She had 7 children. I mean, excuse me, she spoke 7 languages. She had 4 children, but she was also ruthless. She had both of her brothers knocked off and her sister assassinated, because her family's dynasty had a long history of that. But then when she had her son with Caesar, who then after he was murdered, and her 3 children with Antony and Cleopatra, with Antony, all their kids got along because Antony and Cleopatra raised them to be a family that didn't compete with each other. So she had the wherewithal to know how toxic that was. So we all when we think of Cleopatra, we tend to think of Elizabeth Taylor, but I'm looking forward to thinking of her as Gal Gadot.
I really am too. And Rooney Mara as Audrey Hepburn, of course. I was talking to somebody the other day, and David, I'm not sure if you're going to call back or not. If you don't call back today, we'll get you next time.
Yeah, call in next week. Yeah.
I was having a conversation with let me just call them my group of people. For those of you that know me, you know that I'm 35 plus years in recovery and 50 plus years being clean. And so things come up. And one of the things that came up recently, which is quite a conundrum, is the mere fact, and this is extremely important in states like Florida, in Tennessee, Alabama. What came up in one of the groups the other day, and Cleopatra's name came up in terms of Athena, and do we have to be warriors? That's how it came up in the group. And to my surprise, I listened, and I was, well, what do you mean? And when the group member, like a lot young person, says, my grandma doesn't even know what's happening with Social Security. And I listen, I don't. And so somebody said, what do you mean? That doesn't affect us. And the young woman says, what do you mean? Who's going to take care of your grandma if she doesn't get Social Security? And so they started talking about being warriors. So they went around and each of them picked a warrior face. And this is on just Social Security. And then they looked at me and kindly, I'm not telling you what they said on air. I'm not going to repeat it. And they said, what are you going to do? You're the big time talk. And I said, well, I'm glad you asked that. I'm going to be launching a campaign called notmysocialsecurity.com. I own the domain. And I'm not going to be doing it for me. I'm going to be doing it for all of us, but I'm especially going to be doing it for you. Because if grandma and mama and grandpa, and if they can't afford to pay their rent, the ripple effect in society is one thing, but the ripple effect in families is devastating.
Agreed.
And so, this is not a political conversation. This is a humanity conversation, because that's what our show is about.
Well, plus with Social Security, people have been paying into it their entire working life. It's not like it's a handout.
No. And I've been working a lot of years, Mark. I mean, come on.
Yep. And what's the maximum, like $3,000 a month? I mean, that's poverty level. But it's better than nothing. Oh, I understand we got David back.
David.
Yes. Yes,
let's go.
We have David back here. I'm going to connect David now. David.
Thank you, Nat.
Are you there? Can you hear us, David? Welcome to the show.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Now, David, we only have a few minutes, so I'm going to encourage you to call back next week.
No problem. I just want to commend you guys on one major thing. there's so many psychic mediums world renowned that have either a 1,000,000-year waiting list or their availability is so impossible.
true.
And you guys do so much amazing good for the average person. I commend you on every sense of the word, because if there was more people like you available in the world, the world would be a better place on every sense of the word.
Well, thank you, David.
You just know that you make an impact every week. Know that.
David, I want to thank you for that. When I was in Sedona and I finished my presentation, I gave a PowerPoint, and my last slide was a slide of the psychic and the doc. And I explained that, I introduced the crowd that my co-host was Dr. Pat Baccili, and I said, we take calls from listeners every week because Dr. Pat and I look at this show as our ministry. Yeah. Yes, we have our businesses, where I do the private readings and the gallery events and the online light circles. In fact, for everyone listening, there's only a couple tickets left for Saturday, March 29th. Just go to my website, afterlifefrequency.com, and light circles are limited to 6 people. But every week, Dr. Pat and I, and we combined our talents. And it's had such a beautiful synergistic effect. And for you to call in,
thank you, David,
and tell us that, David, that makes all the difference in the world. Thank you.
Thank you. And David, let me give you some information. Unlike a lot of shows,
it's reality based.
Yeah, and unlike a lot of shows, you should know this, and the listener should know this. Mark and I fund this ourselves. We do not have sponsors.
Wow.
We do not bring people in to tell us what we can say and what we can do. We are funding this show ourselves. Why? Because when we looked at each other,
another thing that separates you guys.
But I got to tell you, we looked at each other and we just said we're not doing enough. And we really started this post-COVID. But we're here for you, David. Would you call in next week, please?
Yeah, we want to make sure that we definitely will. Plenty of time.
But Mark, can I just ask? Can I just ask you one question?
Go ahead.
One small question, then because I got to be honest. In the past couple of months, I've had so many bizarre supernatural things happen to such a degree, and
it's cool,
I just happen to. Well, let's just say it's different on every sense of the word.
You've got to call in next week, David, and we're going to put you right at the top of the list, because I don't want this to be short, because, boy, we're going to get fired up with you.
Yeah, and David, let me make no mistake. Hold on, David. I know you want to give me a whole litany, and I want to hear it, but let's do it next week when we have enough time. But let me leave you with this thought. My work, particularly my books, Evidence of Eternity, and my latest book, The Afterlife Frequency, are about explaining how the supernatural is really natural and the paranormal is really normal. So the paranormal is a natural part of nature. And when people like you start recognizing and experiencing it, it opens up a whole new way of looking at this side and the other side. So thank you, David, for sharing that. And we look forward to spending more time with you next week.
We're going to move you right up to the top of the order when you call in, David, okay? Nat has got your information. Wow, thank you, David. Oh, my God, my heart. It's so great. David, I can't thank you enough for your kind words, Mark.
Thanks, David.
See, this is why you and I do what we do. And sometimes we don't know if anybody's listening. So I want to thank David.
My pleasure, and it's well earned.
Thank you so much.
Well
Mark,
earned.
what a great show, right? So David just got us fired up for the rest of the year.
I know. I wish we had another hour. And for people out there who do want to sponsor the Psychic and the Doc, please contact the Transformation Network, because we're not adverse to having sponsors, because like Dr. Patton
but we're really particular. We're a little bit really particular.
We're doing what we believe is the good work. And this is our ministry, but we are open to sponsors, because Dr. Pat has spent
only
the last
if they're going to sponsor our listeners. We don't need them to sponsor the show.
Right, sponsor our listeners.
The listeners. I love that.
Dr. Pat, you've spent 20 years on the Dr. Pat 22 on both the Dr. Pat show and building the Transformation Network, which has many shows on it. And I love the subtitle of Transformation Talk Radio is positive talk radio. Okay. And,
All right,
and doesn't the world need more positivity?
That's
And
why
with
we brought in Nat. That's why we brought in Nat.
That's why we brought in Nat. We'll leave
All
you
right.
with that positive equinox thought. And ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you next week.
Hey, everybody, thank you for tuning into The Psychic in the Doc with Mark Anthony and me, Dr. Pat Baccili, right here on TransformationTalkRadio.com. Hey, look, come back next week so we can explore with you more of life's many challenges and learn from fascinating guests. And you know what? Even Mark and me. We'll connect you and discover insights from people in this life and from the afterlife. Extraordinary problems? Yeah, they do. They require extraordinary solutions. But step into the world of possibilities with us on The Psychic and the Doc. That's every Thursday, 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on TransformationTalkRadio.com. That's TransformationTalkRadio.com. And don't forget, we're also live face-to-face on Facebook.com, Transformation Talk Radio.